I paid attention to the astrological energy that had been happening in the past year. I would hear things about a retrograde and, that it's going to end on this date and things will lighten up. And I would just take note of that. And in noticing, I would register what transpired. Or, this one actually happened. I heard of an energy prediction that there was going to be something from the past come up. And I thought, I'm so over my past stuff. Then that trauma rearose for real, and I was able to identify it though. So I feel like I've been more aware of this astrological spiritual energy happening. And, I've really just let myself be to it this year. So today, we're coming at business from a little bit of a different perspective. My guest, Shauna Angel Blue, has been reading tarot and practicing transformational Reiki for the past 30 years. She has a master's degree in fine art, and she uses her artistic talents to create a unique practice where she channels the Earth's energies to connect you to your soul's calling. Today, we're talking about Mercurial energy, those Mercury retrogrades, that we flippantly reference when things in our lives go awry. So with January 30th being the official start of this year's first Mercury retrograde, Shauna gives us resources to handle these periods, and she also gives us the rest of the 2021 dates to plan our activities. This is a very interesting episode. Let's get to it. You're listening to the Long Game Podcast with Sandra Scaiano. In a world where everyone is doing, it's easy to get lost in a sea of comparison, secret tricks, and promises of overnight success. The long game is my approach to business, the actual day in and day out philosophy that you have to show up, you have to do the work, and there's no quick fixes for long-term success. I'm a web designer, digital strategist, and energetic thinker, and I'm here to share the process and lessons I experience with my clients daily who are going through the same struggles of building a business as you are. We'll hear from successful entrepreneurs sharing their long game strategies, and I'm fun, so we're going to have a little fun along the way too. Thanks for being here. Let's get to today's episode. Okay, welcome, Shauna. 2020 had me noticing a lot about the stars a bit more. And knowing you, we've connected deeper. So I'm glad to have you here today. And we're going to talk about one of the entrepreneur fears, Mercury retrograde.
Yes.
And, so welcome.
Thank you.
Just before we hit record, we were talking about how I am so obsessed with business that anytime any of these star aligned type of conversations or any type of intuition conversations, I immediately apply them in my business brain into my business life. But, so I have to be reminded that all of this is our holistic life, our whole life, this, what we're going to talk about can apply to your family life, your business life, your meeting people out in the supermarket life type of things.
Yes.
And all those experiences, because I get a little wrapped up. I just am a self-admitted obsessed business person.
It's always good to know the truth about yourself.
Right, exactly. I am honest about myself. All right, so let's start. Let's start talking about Mercury retrograde. What is it? What is it actually?
Okay, in our heavens, we have the planetary system. And from our viewpoint from the Earth, our Earth-centered ego, we see the planets moving, and different times it appears to us that the planets are moving backwards, and that's what's called the retrograde. And then from our point of view, they move forward. So I was thinking, from the heavenly point of view, they're all moving just how they're supposed to be moving.
Right.
And so it's how we're viewing it, right? And so Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. The ancients assigned qualities to each of the planets and named them according to gods and goddesses in, I believe, Athenian times, Grecian times. So Mercury is the god of, it's a trickster god. It's a psychopomp kind of god. It moves people above and below to the heavens, to the earth. It brings messages, and it rules transportation, commerce, and I always forget the third, communication.
Communication.
There's always one or three I forget. Okay, and communication as business owners is important, right? And we're being on the
Mhm.
internet is the huge communication. Like my business is all according to the internet, and I'm a traveler. So over the years, I've just surrendered to it because I have this thing about time economics. I'm kind of older. I'm like, okay, I have how much, and I'm business obsessed too, because this is part of what I want to accomplish in my lifetime is learning this part of life. Like I've been a mother, student, teacher, professional reader, but this online world 7 years ago, I decided, okay, I'm just gonna jump.
Yeah.
And it has been like the most frustrating thing ever. There's so much to learn, right? And it's all based on the internet. Now, I have 5 planets in Virgo. Virgo and Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and I have Virgo and Mercury. To me, really, the study of the Mercury retrogrades and the timing of it is important for me in making my plans for the year.
Well, we
And
talk a lot about planning here. So, I
okay.
mean, I think that's a really interesting point because if you know what is upcoming,
Mhm.
you can handle it because that's really what it's about. I mean, a lot of people talk like oh no, it's Mercury retrograde, or chalk that up to Mercury retrograde in
Uh-huh.
passing. But really, when you are understanding these times a year, usually it comes what, like 4 times a year we get a
3
retrograde?
It's 3 to 4 times a year, and it can be retrograde anywhere from 19 to 24 days.
Okay,
Okay.
so just everyone listening, there's one starting on January 30th, and it
Yes.
goes until when,
February
Shauna?
19th, I believe.
Okay, so
Okay. Well, but let's pause a minute back just a minute about when people do say that chalk it up to Mercury retrograde, it's really a good coping mechanism because when you can do that, you can kinda let go and surrender and go, "Okay," and you can make lightheartedness of it. I mean, I still do that. I mean, it's still happening. It's still, I because I've accepted it and planned doesn't mean it's changed anything, right? See, we can't control Mercury. When I'm gonna use that analogy of the thermometer. When Mercury's direct, the olden days when they had Mercury inside of thermometers,
Mhm.
it just rises and falls as the temperature's there, and it's working perfectly fine. But, oh, here comes the retrograde, and the thermometer breaks, and the mercury rolls all over the floor, and there's no way of putting that back together, ever,
Yes.
until the direct comes and you buy a new thermometer or something, right? And because the other one broke. So it's a understanding of how you, because it's all our point of view, how are you engaging with the information that's being given to you through this different point of view of planning for your business according to Mercury retrogrades? Okay.
Mhm.
So, Sandra, what I do is I go onto the internet and I Google Mercury retrograde and I go to this findyourfate.com because on this particular site, they have the 12-month calendars, and they'll tell you the green shaded days are the retrograde, the red is the retrograde, the yellow is the post retrograde.
So just for everyone listening, there's the shadow of the retrograde, which is that energy is already churning up
Yes,
before,
which
and
you
then there's
you've been noticing that, right?
right. I was just saying that's the communication has already been breaking down in my house.
Yes,
But then there's the actual retrograde, and then there's a post period.
yes,
So when you say that a retrograde could be 19 days or something, but
mhm,
it actually goes longer than that.
yes. Well, and I like to pay attention to that because in my experience, what I have found is that things are messier for me before and after. And when it's the actual retrograde, I'm just watching everybody else having the car accidents or the meltdowns because the planes, whatever. And I also get this other like kind of high, right, when it goes retrograde and it goes direct. Like I'll get more clients calling me or something. There's more talking happening.
Mhm.
And that's the pattern that I've observed, by watching this for like 20 years. I didn't really start paying attention to it till my business, right? When it was really super important to me. So on that find your fate, like what I've done for this year is I've gone onto it and I can see, okay, and this is just a general thing. From mid-March to mid-May is a clear time. So I'm going to launch a new product that I'm going to be working on during the retrograde because that's a good time to clean things out, to make plans, to do work. I will have to do some re-editing on the writing that I'm doing because that's communication. But I've already understood that and booked
Mhm.
that in, and I have, 8 clear weeks to really launch this one product and test it out. And to me, it is about time economics and spending it wisely, because how much money do you invest in your business? Like
Right,
I
all the
want.
mechanisms that go. I mean, and the time investment as well, the money
Mhm,
investment and the time investment, because we do plan this out. Like you said, like I know that if I'm writing in early February, I'm going to have to allocate some
mhm,
time to editing that. It isn't going to be
mhm,
perfect because of the
mhm,
communication energy that might be going on. So
mhm,
I
mhm,
love like, kind of being aware of that. These type of things, it is about noticing. We talk a
mhm,
lot about noticing here and noticing the
mhm,
symbols and the signs and the signals for you, because as forthright and on the ball, like there is this other energy, right?
mhm,
And
mhm,
for that spiritual energy, and it can be religious energy that comes to you, it can be celestial energy.
mhm.
I feel like with some of the work that you're doing, and of course, we'll have all of Shauna's contact and information in the show notes. Shauna has these emails that she sends out, and they have, it's tipping us off or talking to us about these times. And, I would read them and I would be like, I don't have any issues with that. No. And then, like a week later, I'd be like, oh my gosh, that happened. And I really took the past year to be noticing a lot more. And I say here, like, we are a touch of woo. I've got Jersey and a touch of woo because
Uh-huh.
I believe it. I mean, the crow story of how it, like that crow was speaking to me a few years ago.
Mm.
I feel like we just have to be aware. This is another part of that
Uh-huh,
awareness of
uh-huh.
the
Well,
energy.
well, well, 2020 really ripped the door open for everybody. I mean, it was a huge world surrender. And we can see the people who are not necessarily aligning into this new age and
Hmm.
how that's that Capricorn world just falling apart because it was all in Capricorn, everything that was happening. One other caveat I want to add, Sandra, is the retrogrades for 2021 are all in air signs, which air is all about thinking and communication.
Mm.
The first one is in Aquarius, and that is Aquarius likes things to be wild and you can't predict them and make them be and contain them. That's where this miscommunication can understand because if you're not accepting people how they are, they're not going to want to talk to you. They're not going to want to be around you. Feelings are going to get hurt. And so as business owners, we have to be really, and excuse me, I'll make an I statement on that. I know that I have the ability to say something that I know is from my heart and someone will interpret it like I'm being bad,
Hmm.
you know?
Right.
And so
I just did that to my husband about 20 minutes ago before we hopped on this call. I was like, oh, okay, then. And he's like, what? Literally, that just happened. So,
right? Okay, and that's the shadow part, right? The shadow
mhm,
is bringing to light what we can't see, okay? And so when we have this understanding, I do know how to prepare better for myself. Like I have a little assistant and she's not showing up. And I'm going to have to tell her that I'm going to talk to you at the end of February and see if you still want to participate with me because I'm not going to go through this time with this
mhm.
kind of angst going on. So that's how I'm taking care of myself so that I'm putting my best self into my business. I'm business obsessed also.
Well, I love that. I love the idea of using it and being aware of it so
Mhm.
that you might tailor certain conversations. But, and I've brought this up to you before that in my business, it's just ongoing. I'm
Mhm.
always dealing with clients. I'm always signing contracts of people that I may have laid up some work or set up some work, and then it's time to sign the contract. Like there isn't an ability to push that off for 19 days kind of thing because
Uh-huh.
we've got to get started. I've got to
Yeah.
start working with someone. So I want to talk about how we navigate that. Like we know that there's that trickster energy and it's about, so like, let's talk about how we can, we can't stop that flow. So what does it
Uh-huh.
mean to us as we go forward?
Well, I have a question for you. I've been thinking about like because you said that about you have these contracts you got to sign. And I was curious if you've ever done a study on those contracts of the people that you signed. How did the contract go? How did it work
No,
out with those people? Did
no,
the
but I will be aware this
Yes,
time around for
right,
certain.
right,
For
right.
certain. And since we've been kind of discussing this topic and knowing that it's coming up, I've thought, oh, who's getting one in that time frame? And I've been thinking like, oh, okay, some are people I know or I've worked with, some are some new people. So that's a
Uh-huh.
little bit of an unknown, but
Yeah,
I will definitely pay attention
yeah.
clearer
Well,
this time.
also, like, and how do they follow through after signing the contract, right? Because a contract is an understanding of what's going to happen in a commitment, right?
Hmm.
And things happen, and none of this is wrong.
Right, right.
Nobody's wrong here. I think this is the gift in it because we're human beings and life is life, okay? And so handling a Mercury retrograde, let's see. Because I'm not a contract-based person and I do go with the flow, my main thing is to not get hooked into my frustration and anger about something not happening when I think it's gonna happen.
True.
That takes a lot of energy, and then it can just spiral down, it can and move out to other things. And we're talking more about communication, aren't we, right? Because commerce is connected to the communication, and so is my traveling,
Oh my gosh, right. Because I
right?
need to, and I'm just using myself as an example for this, but I need to talk to people all the time. Like there are
Mhm.
projects, there is a portion that I go and hold myself up and get it done.
Uh-huh,
But my business is based on understanding people's brands and their voices. So there
uh-huh,
is a lot of communication that goes
uh-huh.
on there.
Well, the word that's coming in right now for me is vulnerability,
Mm.
and how willing are you to be human and be vulnerable in communicating with the people around you? And how willing are you to follow up and make an apology, a heartfelt apology, owning your side of the mess up?
Hmm.
Is it possible? Like, sometimes it's better to not say anything at all. Like, honestly, when Mercury's are retrograde, I never talk to my older sons. One's a Gemini, one's a Aries. The Aries is totally angry at me all the time. Like, I don't send any energy towards them whatsoever because they are going to misunderstand it because they're
Hmm.
my sons. And that's like a given. And they're
Right, right, right,
actually
right.
and they're adult men with their
Right.
own
They're adults
lives
now,
who don't want
right?
their mother calling them. So, like, that's a general rule for me. And so vulnerability and understanding the other side of the street and what's going on.
Hmm.
And that can truly be difficult. And then the other thing I wanna add is that I really do slow down in my driving in traffic. Like, I don't wanna spend my time being in a hospital, money for whatever. I just don't want to spend my time doing that. So, I really slow down and drive defensively during those times.
Interesting. And it's even I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is a slowdown of everything, not just driving, but a
Yes,
slowdown in the other areas. Because
yes,
to understand and to
yes,
be vulnerable, like you need to stop yourself because that is that kinetic energy of, no, I've got to drive this program forward or however those feelings are coming. So it's a
yes.
slowing down. And that's really good to keep in mind. I mean, I feel like it's just the reality of things that things don't stop. Nothing stops. We're
No.
not living in an age of, well, it's Mercury retrograde, so I'm not going to do anything.
Uh-huh.
But just to keep in mind and that slowdown, I really like
Mhm,
that
mhm. Well,
piece.
it's a surrender, that's the 3rd word I'll add, because it is slowing down whether we like it or not. Oh, and the other thing is about not buying any new purchases, I just read, and any new electronics. And what I have found in my experience in the past is if I buy things, they during that time, A, it takes them forever to get to my house if they get to my house. B, they break down or I have to replace them. So that's more time spent doing that. If I had just waited until Mercury was direct to buy it, like, I had a camera that I needed to get fixed, and I made sure I got it in at the first of the year so that even before the shadow energy, it was getting worked on during that positive time. It becomes about these little nuances, again, of time economics and how do you wanna spend your precious lifetime?
I love that you had mentioned to me one time that you write the date and that it was retrograde if you bought an appliance.
Oh, yes. Well, no, that's what I didn't do that. If I did that, like,
If you
if it
did,
broke
okay.
down during that time and I had to buy one then, then I would write, because appliances last a long time,
Mhm.
hopefully. And so I do mark with a magic marker on my appliances the month and the year that I bought them.
Smart.
But I haven't bought any during a Mercury retrograde, so I didn't write Mercury
Right,
retrograde
but
down
if you
yet.
had to,
Yes,
right,
if I
right.
had to, I would mark it down. I would.
I love that, and it's about, that just it makes it about having these little coping mechanisms
Yes.
to and note, and that also gives you an opportunity to look back and say, "Oh, let me look back on that date." Like,
Uh-huh.
I'm going
Uh-huh.
to totally reflect on this next retrograde upcoming.
Well, the thing is too, I'm gonna shift that one sentence coping mechanism to tools of empowerment.
Mm,
Because this is,
mm.
as business owners, this is what we just wanna keep projecting, and I don't have to say, "Oh, I checked my Mercury retrograde calendar," or whatever, like, I can feel this inside of myself, the energy flowing well, and I'm pleased with the job well done, and that grows my confidence and my desire to keep doing the business, because I feel like beginning entrepreneurs, when they don't understand these kind of things, get really overwhelmed and quit. They end up wanting to quit because they think it's their fault or they've done something wrong or why isn't this doing this? And like, I mean, it's a lot of stress learning these new tools.
I deal with it every single day with
Yeah.
clients who are at varying levels of that.
Yeah.
And some of them, it's also, that drive to want to do their zone of genius, do their
Yep.
creative work and not do the other piece. But I'm just a believer, though, in there's a certain level of foundation that you need to know about your business. Even if at some point you have a virtual assistant that you're like, I don't
Mhm.
want to do that. I don't want to deal with
Mhm.
that. I pass it off. I delegate
Mhm.
it, but you still need to have an understanding, so I still encourage people to kind of face it and get some level of understanding or get their hands into some sort of
Mhm.
technology at any point.
Well, and I wanna support that idea too because when I first started, I did it the first way and I hired it out and la la la, and people didn't show up how I wanted them to, and it didn't look how I wanted to. I spent, tens of thousands of dollars when ultimately alls I had to do was, like, just take a class and start learning it myself, and get that understanding, and now, like, 7 years later, I do feel like I have some competence, and so that I have a VA, I just know because it is my
Hmm.
business and I'm responsible for it, nobody else.
Totally. And it's not only responsibility, it's the joy, like that
Yes.
creative, like responsibility. Yes, you're responsible for all the things that get done and handled, but it's also like you understand now how to have your vision come out and come to life with
Oh,
that piece
my
of stuff.
husband just said to me yesterday, he's in Philadelphia right now with his parents, and he said to me yesterday, "Shauna, I just wanna tell you, I'm really proud of you for everything you've learned on the whole internet world, and just, good job, goddess." Like, and
Nice.
that was really nice to hear from him,
Mhm.
you know?
Totally, totally. It is a process, and
Mhm,
sometimes you feel alone because 'cause you're the only one in it, so to speak.
mhm,
So,
it's true.
to have them notice is important. And I think also it comes back to the whole piece of slowing down and planning.
Mhm,
A lot of times we farm things out because we wanna move forward fast,
mhm, mhm,
when you learn it yourself, you slow down, you plan. I mean, listen, I help people move forward fast. I want that as well. I want people to work with me. But part of that working with me is I build the system and then show them how to use the system.
okay,
So even in that, they're moving forward fast, but then they're learning it as well. So I think
mhm.
it goes back to that slow down and peace that we
Well,
were talking
especially for
about.
you, crazy Gemini, because that's a lot of work. That's a lot of understanding, and that's a lot of demand on you from your clients. So it's really, I feel like you understanding the Mercury retrogrades this year is gonna really empower you, especially the next one that's coming up when it's Mercury retrograde in Gemini.
And when is that?
Let's go to the findyourfate.com and the red shaded days, and it's during your birthday, of course. When's your birthday?
I'm the 15th of June.
Yes. From May 31st to June 21st is the main retrograde.
Mm.
Okay. And then if we were to take it even one step further, if a person looks at their birth chart and sees what sign Mercury is in, which I looked yours up, but I can't remember now, that's another level of it, another deeper level of connecting into because you want to get a judgment of how much is this going to affect you. Because some are not that bad for some
Mm-hmm.
people. Like they think, oh, Mercury retrograde, no problemo. Like, and then one will just come and bite them right there, and they're like, okay, now I get it.
So let's unpack that because this is an important piece. Like you have to have your chart done to know where all the planets were when you were born.
Okay, and
And then
it's super easy to do. Go on.
okay. And then that system or that setup follows you and sets the tone for going forward and how you're responding in these planetary times. Is that how it all works? I
I'm
mean,
gonna
let's talk about that
okay.
because
Your natal chart, your birth chart is what the heavens looked like when you were born. Okay, let's just take a breath on that, right? It's a fixed thing. There's nothing you can do about it. It is you, okay? And it's like this beautiful symphony, okay? And then the heavens move on and the planets move on and they move, and it's called transiting your chart, okay, as years go on. So that when those planets are moving, they're pinging those parts of yourself and they're making your symphony play. Sometimes it's in discordance, sometimes it's in harmony, right? And it's an information, it's informing you, your
mm-hmm.
soul, your
Interesting.
being, okay? And that's the beauty in it is to know who you are because it's going to give you so much information to deal with life. So
Mm-hmm.
back to the chart, you can Google a free chart, and we're going to stick with the Mercury and Mercury retrogrades. You'll find out what sign Mercury is in, and you have to learn the glyphs, and they'll tell you what glyph it looks like and stuff. And so it will just help feed you more information. So, for instance, we're going to stick with you, Sandra, because we know you're a Gemini sun. And so we know because it's a sun, like sun, moon, or rising, no, excuse me, sun or rising Gemini is going to be affected by Mercury because it's its ruling planet, meaning that's the strongest force. You can talk a million miles a minute. You can think a million thoughts and you can handle and deal with all of it. It's amazing. Like that's what makes you beautiful Sandra Sky in your business, right? Because you can handle all that. So now we've got your ruling planet that's going to retrograde during your sun time, and your mind might not be able to kind of synapse things together as much,
Mm-hmm.
right? That thermometer is going to be broken.
Right. And it's a pullback, it's a go back to go.
No, let's think of it as a creative process, okay? Let's keep it in that realm of creativity. I like to say crazy is creative. So
Yes.
even if it's like there can still be so much, like when we allow that energy to come in from both sides of that Mercury, because Mercury has that caduceus energy, that the God carries that caduceus. So there's always this like healing of the mind happening. So even though it's gonna be so intense for you, you might even thrive in it even better because you know that this is what's happening, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna ride this wave. I'm gonna look at all those mercurial little things that have fallen all over, and I'm gonna see the beautiful pattern in them instead of trying to make
Mhm.
them fit into this container.
Right, right.
You know, that
Interesting. So people in general can just understand that there is a force when the different planets, like there's an influence for the
influence is
different
a better word.
influence.
Influence. And it's a free will universe. You don't have to plug into it if you don't want to.
Hmm.
Like
Yep.
there's no that
And
this
it's fascinating. I've always been a person who read my astrological, for the week, my astrology piece for the week. And those things come to pass. Or, that's what happened to me with 2020 when I had been in it for a while and then kind of phased out. And then 2020 was the get back in it year of I'm noticing that those are aligned and that's all happening. So it's just about noticing and being aware.
well, and what's the point? We want to have better relationships. We want to have a good, successful business. We want to thrive in our life.
I mean,
You
what's
know?
the point? That's like the big question
Yeah.
forever,
Yeah.
always.
Well, that's
It's the long game, right? It's the
yes,
long game question. What's the point? What's
yes,
the big picture?
yes, yes, yes. And so why are you doing what you're doing? So I want to just finish one more thing with the third Mercury retrograde in 2021, because it's in Libra. Libra vibrates to the planet Venus, which is beauty and love and everything copacetic. And so that won't happen as much. Right? Like that's going to be a bit of an ugly mess also. And that's from September 28th to October 16th. Just the heads up, like to me, for me, that's a little bit too far into the future. Like
Mhm.
I think I have my personal business planned up to like September right now. I don't really know what the rest of the year looks like, but I just wanted to mention that because it is all air signs. So it is about how are we communicating this year? That's a big theme.
So good. And we will post those dates in the show notes as
Okay.
well. So we'll keep them in so people can keep aware. And I want to invite people to reach out to you for a little more information. I did this earlier this year and did a reading with Shauna, and that was really interesting. It was, via Zoom. No, because there were some things we know each other, yes,
Hmm.
but we don't know everything about each other's lives. And you had said some things that at first I was like, wow, that is not, I didn't expect to hear. And then even recently, and like this, the connection was made as to why you said that,
Mm-hmm.
and this was, we did this a month or so ago. So, but it was just interesting. I just feel like if you're curious, and you want to get a one-on-one and you want more information about your own personal,
Hmm.
where things align for you personally, is
Hmm.
to reach out and book a call with Shauna
Yeah.
on her website.
And Sandra, thank you for saying that because as a reader and a healer, I really do care about the future. Not a lot of readers will make those kind of predictions or, whatever. But for personally, I will do that because it's that support and that understanding. And again, that vulnerability and changing and molding because we're in historical times and it's changing. And, there has to be a new way of interacting in life too, because what we're leaving for our children is a huge mess. So the more that we can like realign ourselves and maybe
Mhm.
let them be of service to us, because they have the capability, I hope, to deal with what's changing, what's coming up. At some point in my business, I just decided like I'm here for the future and this is what I'm supporting in my work.
Mhm. It's also so based in relationships, like we are our relationships going forward. And I think that was some of the insight that I got, because it's about these relationships in these future instances and how you're handling them and that
Mhm.
connection. I mean, again, it brings up communication, but that it was a really special experience. And I want to invite all of you to partake in that
Mm.
and have that for yourself. And if you're curious, like this is something where you say, I'm not walking down past a psychic sign sandwich board on the street. Like this is someone who is in our world and we know and I've experienced with. And I want to invite you to go if you're curious and explore that side of
Mhm.
yourself and
Mhm.
go
Mhm.
forward. So
Mhm. Yeah, those people scare me too.
So all of Shauna's information will be in the show notes. Shauna, I want to thank you so much today for taking the time to come and give us a little bit of education and a lot of comfort in all that we're going to be dealing with going forward. So thank you so much for
Mhm.
being
Thank
here.
thank you, Sandra. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining me today. You can access more info in the show notes at thelonggamepodcast.net. If today's show connected with you in some way, please share it with your friends or hop on iTunes and leave me a review. Until next time, keep playing the long game.